What's going on, everybody? K to the 2 here, bringing you our Pokemon Premier League Division 1. Man, it feels good to say that after winning D2 last season, but Division 1 Season 6 Draft Analysis. And today we are going to go ahead and go over the team that I selected in the draft. Yeah! But we are doing it a little bit different, so I'm going to be showing you all the mons that I drafted, of course, and they are all going to have their own slides. However, I'm going to be taking you through the draft pick by pick, not just my own, but the entire draft. Not necessarily analyzing everyone else's picks, but it allows me to show you the thought process going into the order of which I decided to pick the mons, where I decided to pick them, why I decided to pick them when I did. So we're going to be discussing more on our draft strategy rather than our draft synergy, if that makes sense. So I hope this, I really hope this gets to you in a different sort of way. It shows you a little bit of a different insight of what goes into a draft, in case you're a little bit more inexperienced in drafting, or you're looking to improve upon your own drafting. Not saying like I'm an amazing drafter or anything, but this team has me feeling pretty good. So I'm hoping that the insight that went into each of my picks can help you later down the line with your own drafting style. Hopefully either showing you different ways that you could draft, different strategies that you can pursue in your own drafts. And I'm talking enough about it. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. But before we do that, I'm going to man, I'm good at talking. I'm going to go ahead and show you our layout for our thingamajig. So we are here, and now we're here. So going over the draft format, as you know or maybe not know, the Pokemon Premier League uses a budget system in which we are given, prior to the season it was 110 points, however we have upped the budget to 120 points. And every Pokemon is listed as fairly as possible as the PPL has decided. A price for each individual mon, and it is up to us as coaches to draft and put together pieces to fit into that 120 budget or less, between 8 and 11 Pokemon. So you can't have a team of 7 and use up your 120 budget, because you'd have like 7 amazing mons, but like, you know, you only have 7, so like it's kind of a problem. So we put a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 11. And this season we are introducing something new. We are introducing a Z budget. Now what this is we take the price of each Pokemon, and that goes towards the Z budget if we decide to make it a Z Pokemon. So let's say I get Landorus Therian. That is 19 points. That would count towards 19 in our Z budget, but it's not going against our actual budget in order to make Landorus a Z-Mon. So if we use Landorus as a Z-Mon, now we have 6 left in our budget because Lando is 19, and then you can make another Pokemon, like a 6-point Pokemon or less, your Z-Mon, and you can also have as many Z Pokemon as you want. Like, say you want 5 5-point Z-Mons. Sure, you have to draft 5 5-point Mons on your team, but at least you're making them a little bit more useful by giving them Z capabilities. This is going on long enough. Let's go ahead and get right into the picks that went before our pick. And I'm going to show you the draft order and everything, and it's going to be a grand old time. So we're going to get right into that right now. Okay, so looking at it, we have ended up getting the 9th pick overall. Not the best, especially with the short list of mons that I am considering. I'm going to go ahead and go over those mons right now. The mons that I was considering going into the draft were, in this order, Tapu Koko, Landorus Therian, and Zygarde 50%. There weren't really any other mons that I decided I really wanted to use, and those were the first ones that came to mind. Now, being 9th, that kind of sets us back a little bit because I fully expect Landorus, Therian, and Tapu Koko to go before then. And as you can see, the draft has already started. Kelly ended up getting the #1 overall pick. He decided to go with Mega Diancie, which is cool. Wasn't really considering that. Colton ended up going 2nd overall, getting Blacephalon for 18. Never was considering that Pokemon. Shoddy ended up getting Megalopunny. Kinda, maybe I could have considered it if the first 3 that I wanted did end up going, but of course, they haven't gone yet, so that's something good. Hoopa Unbound ended up going. That's a new mon that we decided to unban. There's Celesteela. That was another mon that I could have considered if the first 3 mons went. And right here is when Tapu Koko goes. So that's the first mon that digs into me. But if Jack picks something that isn't those top 3, I'm guaranteed one of those. And as you can see, he ended up taking Jirachi. And now it's up to Mono to decide what I get. And as you can see, he picked Lando T. And that basically means that we are going to end up getting our 3rd choice on that list that I decided to go with. So basically the draft ended up picking for me what I was going to take. So here we are. This is Zygarde. Zygarde 50%. Our first pick of the Pokemon Premier League season. This is a pretty good mon. I would have to say myself is a pretty much top 10 mon in the format. I would think, at least, especially with it given its insane bulk and the access to 1,000 arrows. You know, one thing that makes it really good. Like, there really isn't much to be said about Zygarde that hasn't already been said. The only thing that's kind of lacking is the fact that it's only base 100 attack, but it can make up for that with access to, like, Choice Band or Dragon Dance, Weakness Policy, stuff like that. So it definitely makes up for it, and the fact that it gets Extreme Speed is very nice as well. So that's going to be pretty much what we're building our draft around, and that's pretty much all I have to say about it. So we're going to move on back to the draft, see what we decided to pick up with our Zygarde, and let's get right back to it. So here we are back to the draft. We ended up taking Zygarde 50. Now, another mon that I was considering alongside this was going to be Zapdos, and I was considering taking it first round in case all 5 of the previous mons that had been drafted already had been taken, and as you can see, it hasn't been taken in the first round. So I think it would be a really good idea to end up getting Zapdos with our team, so that is what I'm aiming for. Again, Zapdos, like, it's really hard to really guess what's going to go in the first 2 rounds. You just got to pick your best available Pokemon, and that's exactly what I'm going to end up doing and getting Zapdos, which Paul isn't going to get because he's going to end up getting Tornadus Therian. So let's go ahead and talk about our second pick, Zapdos. So, as big of an advocate as I am for the Thunderuses, and potentially Tapu Koko as well, even though I haven't used it, Zapdos definitely deserves to be talked about as a top 4 mon in terms of electric types. Top 4 electric type in the format. Now, same special attack stat as Thundurus Incarnate, as well as having access to Roost really makes it, like, just, you know, included with the amazing defensive typing of electric flying. Like, it's a Zapdos, guys. It is a Zapdos. We have Zygarde, we have Zapdos. The team is taking a bulky offensive sort of look. Now, depending on what I want to get next with the next couple of picks is really going to decide what the team is going to look like. So we are going to really kind of hone in still on the overall structure of the team. However, we are still going to focus on our best available option to us. So, looking at a short list of mons right now, like, the first thing that popped into my mind was Infernape, and I'm hoping to get that, but there's other mons that could come to me as well. But the main thing that popped out to me did end up being Infernape. We're going to see how that ended up working out with the draft, and we are going to take a look back at the draft, see everyone else's picks for round 2 and the beginning of round 3 until it gets back to us. Alright, and here we are back at the draft screen, but this is a little bit different because I can show you exactly why Infernape might make it back to me, instead of explaining, hey, I got Infernape. So, how did I end up getting Infernape, you ask? Well, there are 16 possible picks between my pick of Zapdos and between me picking Zapdos and Infernape getting back to me. Now, it does not make sense for Shoddy or Colton to take Infernape. Why is this? It is because they already have a fire type or they already have a fighting type. Now, double fighting kind of makes sense. It's been done before several times. Double fire, not as much. And on top of that, there's a list of at least 10 good mons that are priced higher than Infernape, so therefore would be more valuable to a team than Infernape, that could also go. So if we subtract the 4 picks from Colton and Shoddy that they would not waste on an Infernape, there are now 12 mons that could potentially go, or 12 draft slots that could go in front of Infernape that could allow Infernape to get back to me. As well as all these mons could go before Infernape. Kyurem Black, all 3 of the Latios, so Latios, Latias, and Mega Latios. There's Manaphy, there's Charizard X, there's Salamence, there's Garchomp, Mega Kangaskhan, Thundurus Incarnate. All these mons are priced higher than Infernape and are more likely to get picked on a team. Now, Infernape does look like really good with a lot of these picks, but I think it's pretty likely still that Infernape would get back to us. And considering the fact that there's all those mons and 12 likely spots for them to go before Infernape gets back to us, I think it is pretty likely. So let's go ahead and start up the draft again, see what Mono decided to pick with Lando. So as you can see, he ended up taking Mega Pinsir. Like, you know, as a sensible person would pair up with Lando T. Like, oh my god, that's a scary core Lando T Mega Pinsir. Anyway, Jack decided it in order to pair with his Jirachi who wanted a Clefable. So that, good for him. You know what? That's one mon that's priced lower than Infernape even that has now gone off the board. That makes it more likely for Infernape to get back to us. Also, Mega King ended up going. Nidoqueen ended up going. Manaphy to Ruby. That's great news. The Shoddy and Colton picks I don't really care about. Like, I want to talk about Jack for a second because he's likely to get a dragon in order to finish off his Fairy Dragon Steel core, especially having a really good Steel, a really good Fairy, and he can top it off with a really good dragon, especially with all the good dragons left. You can see over there, Kelly ended up getting Dugtrio and Hydreigon. I was kind of afraid of him taking Infernape. I think he was probably the most likely to take it, but he ended up not doing that. As we can see, Shoddy is going for a Fighting Dark and Psychic Core. As I said, it doesn't really affect Infernape coming back to us. Ruby is another one that I was afraid about taking Infernape because he's a very offensive player, but he did end up taking Superior, probably wanting to play around with its new defog tool that it has. Lottie ends up going to Trev, and Greninja to Ethan kind of really helps with us allowing us to get Infernape. Mence ends up going to Jack, and then Tapu Fini to Mono. So as we can see, it is back to us, and we can get our Infernape. It's been a while since I used you. In fact, it has been so long that I've used you, I don't even know how to use you. I'm kidding. I love Infernape. I'm not going to forget how to use Infernape. Like, this is the only mon so far on the team that I have used before, and that is pretty much what I like to do in draft. This doesn't really have to do with like what I'm talking about our team right now, but typically I like to draft mons that I haven't used before in draft. And as you're going to see with our draft, it is a theme that I tend to stick with, at least for this one and like most draft. Anyway, we have Infernape. It's an Infernape. What do I really have to explain what Infernape does? It's a firefighting type. I love the shit out of it, and I haven't used it in forever. So I felt like, it would pair really good with Zygarde, considering it just looks really good next to it. No, Zygarde tends to struggle with grass types. Infernape tends to deal with grass types. Infernape kind of struggles with water types. Zapdos kind of deals with water types. And Zygarde can also break for Infernape. Infernape can break for for Zygarde. There's too many Z's on this team. Speaking of Z's, I haven't picked a Zmon yet. You would think, why haven't you picked Z Zygarde? But I have other plans in mind for what Zmon I want to use, as you're going to see later. That's enough talking about Infernape. It's an ape. I love the shit out of it. You're going to see why I love the shit out of it throughout the season. At least I assume, because I love it and it usually does work. So that is enough on Infernape. Let's go ahead and get back to that draft. Okay, so after taking Infernape, I am pretty much kind of set right now, at least for right now, with my offense, and I kind of want to address the fact that I don't have a reliable rocker. Of course, Infernape can be a good rocker, but I don't want to rely on it being a rocker because I want it to do other things. So that's one thing that I'm going to take a look at. Another thing that I want to take a look at is a potential water type, because I like water types on drafts. And I want some more bulk on the team, of course, to pair with Zapdos in order to get Zygarde free switches and stuff like that. So that is something that I am going to be focusing on. So before we go over our next pick, I'm going to go back over here. So before I go into what I decided to pick next, I think it would be very important to tell you why I decided to pick this now, because it doesn't tend to go round 4, or sometimes it does, but normally it's late round 4, early round 5, so I wanted to get ahead of the game. I ended up taking Bronzong, and you can take a look right now why I thought Bronzong was a good idea right now. As you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams without a Steel type, along with 3 teams that don't have a rocker, and you can make an argument that a couple of them the ones that don't have a reliable rocker, like Mono kind of only has one reliable rocker in Lando, and that's only if he decides to lose coverage on it. Jack, he's set with Rachi and Clefable even. Trev, he has a Nidoqueen. Colton, he can use Garchomp to set up rocks. Sometimes it wants to do other things. Kelly, not really reliable to set up rocks with Mega Diancie and Dugtrio, but they can. They definitely can. But I felt that taking Bronzong right now was the least risky thing to do, whereas if I wanted to get my water type right now, I could have the potential loss of not getting Bronzong. I could replace it with Registeel, but I would rather have a Bronzong on the team. Having another Earthquake immunity is really nice just for Infernape and just in general. And I really like Bronzong's typing. I've never drafted Bronzong before. I've used it before, but on a team that I inherited, not something that I decided to draft myself. And adding to a potential Fairy Dragon Steel. I don't have a Fairy or a Steel yet. Just getting a Steel type right now would make sense to me at least. So that is why I decided to take Bronzong before getting my water type, which is what I'm going to take next. I thought that was the most logical thing to do. So what did I get? I already spoiled it. What did I get? It's Bronzong! Yeah, I already said what it was. Okay, and I've already kind of decided, or I've already explained why I decided to get it. I think it's a good Steel type to have on the team. It can add to a potential Fairy Dragon Steel core. I needed a reliable rocker, and it's bulky. It's bulky. It can set up Trick Room. That's nice. You know what a Bronzong does. It kind of just sits there and does bulky things. And that's exactly what I wanted from a Bronzong. I feel like it will be very helpful to the team overall, and we're moving on. Okay, so moving back to the live draft again. Now, Mono has decided to pick his dragon. Everything's coming together. I think it's time to start thinking about our Mega, right? Potentially. I do have a mega in mind, but we'll get to it after our next pick because I've really wanted to use this next thing for a long time. I've never used it before. I think it is an amazing mon, and I feel like it'll pair up superbly with Zygarde, with what I want to do with the team. Now, right now, there's a couple things in mind. I did say that I wanted my water type, and I do want a fairy type, as I have mentioned before. You know, getting a getting a fairy type would be very beneficial this next round. However, I think our water type is more important to the team's structure, and we can always replace our fairy type. I will be pretty upset if our fairy type does end up getting taken from us on the way back. And that fairy type that I'm thinking of is Ribombee. Now, the thing that I'm thinking with Ribombee is that I really want to use webs with Zygarde, with Zapdos, with Infernape. Not having to use a choice scarf would be really nice. And with our next pick that we end up getting would be very nice. So that's what I'm mainly looking at, especially considering Ribombee has other use besides getting its new tool in webs. Because it can get some, it has a really devastating dual stab to try to switch into. So getting Ribombee for this team would, I think, really seal like what I want to do with the team. It's kind of gonna look kind of setup spammy, which is what I like overall. But let's go ahead, let's talk about what we did end up getting with our water type, which is the big bad Gyarados. I really wanted to use this thing, not only because it's a water type and it has really amazing utility and also amazing bulk, adding to our already super bulky setup Dragon Dance sweeper of Zygarde. I think it pairs super well with Zygarde and Gyarados pair super well together, is what I'm trying to say. Zygarde is going to want to take like ice moves, which Gyarados doesn't resist, but it's not weak to unless it's freeze dry. Like, you know how that works. And also Gyarados, when it's set up, it really forces your opponent to get the Scarf electric moves coming your way, or else Gyarados is a super threat to pow through a team, like really pow through it. And if you get hit with a Scarf electric move, then you can come in with your Zygarde, then I can come in with my Zygarde, and I can start setting up with that. And potentially, if that same Scarfmon is their answer to both Gyara and Zygarde, I can use something like a weakness policy on Zygarde because it's not hitting quite as hard with its coverage move like HP Ice, and then I can do even more damage to the rest of the team. So that's something to look out for. I think these two pair amazingly well. And on top of that, I decided that I wanted to make Gyarados our Z-Mon, our first Z Pokemon. Now, I think Gyara is potentially a top 5 Z-Mon in the format. This is only a theory because I haven't tested it. I haven't seen a lot of people using it, but I believe that the threat of Z-Bounce is just as scary on Gyarados as it is on something like Landorus. Now, Lando does have that amazing 145 attack stat, which it can blow through grass types which normally want to switch into its whatever. Gyarados has access to Z-Bounce, so Supersonic Sky Strike, and just any Sky Strike mon is super scary. I think it's up there with Dragonite, Salamence, and Lando T as one of the top 4 or 5 best Supersonic Sky Strike users in the format. Now, of course, I have to make it work, and it's only 14 points, which is great because Ribombee is 11 points, so I could potentially use those 11 points that are left over in my Z budget to make Ribombee a Z user, which would be great. And having webs with Zygarde and Gyara just makes setup that much easier. It eliminates the option of having a Scarf. So, having Ribombee would be amazing for this team. So let's go ahead get right back to the live draft and see how things shook out. So, we end up getting our Gyarados, and I think it is time to start thinking about a potential Mega that we can get. I have a Mega in mind, and that Mega that I'm thinking of is Mega Tyranitar. Mega Tyranitar? Is that what I just said? That sounded really bad. So, I was thinking Mega Tyranitar after we get Ribombee, and we could potentially run with that. So, as we're going, we can take a look at, you know...
Fuck!
So that's where we are right now. We'll get back to the Mega Tyranitar thing in a minute, because as you can see, we just got sniped. Now you can see how we deal with snipes around here is we pick the next best thing available. Ribombee would have been great for the team. However, we can still make this work. I think we do have a good backup. I have a good backup plan that could potentially work, and I was so upset when Ribombee didn't get back to me. I should have taken it before Gyarados, but also, realistically, all three of these teams could have taken Gyarados, and Gyarados I felt was more important to the team, more important to me as a person in order to get. So, we're going to go ahead and talk about what we do end up taking next, which is going to be a pretty nice mon in its own right. However, let's go ahead and get right into it right now. Okay, so we ended up getting Alolan Ninetales. Obviously, that is a picture of an Alolan Vulpix. Yes. But, like, you can't find a picture of Alolan Ninetales anywhere from the anime, so I went with a Vulpix instead, and it's fucking cute anyway, whatever. So we end up taking Alolan Ninetales. Now, this will give us a little bit of a different dynamic for the team. I was still going with, like, a setup spammy kind of thing, and using our Fairy type to assist in the setup is what I was going with. So, Alolan Ninetales will still be able to do that for us, just in a different way. Ribombee had webs, Alolan Ninetales had Aurora Veil. Oh, God, words. Alolan Ninetales has Aurora Veil. There we go. And that is very helpful to really bulky mons like Zygarde, like Gyarados, like Mega Tyranitar, as I have been discussing over a little bit of the past just now. And having all three of these mons be able to set up under Aurora Veil is super scary, because they're hard to take out enough on their own. And just adding the fact that I could have Aurora Veil with that, whoo-wee, man, does that sound hot. Honestly, I'm not too sad that I lost Ribombee, because we now have an Alolan Ninetales, and I can go ahead and, do the thing that I was thinking of before, which is throwing a Z Crystal on Ribombee, which is what I ended up doing to Alolan Ninetales here. And having the potential for Z Aurora Veil, which is +1 speed, is really nice. So it could potentially set up Aurora Veil for itself and start sweeping if it wants to. It's not the strongest thing in the world, only having 81 special attack. However, it does have Blizzard, so at least it's using a really powerful attack that won't miss, at least while Hail is up. Obviously, that's what Alolan Ninetales does. I felt it was a great addition to the team. Kinda sad. The main thing that I'm sad about is the speed tiers, especially because this does end up being the fastest mon on our team. Having Ribombee at base 124 would have really helped and would have really made our speed tiers look really spread out, really it would have had a really nice range, really nice diversity, which is what I like in getting deferring speed tiers. And as you can see, up to this point, every mon has a completely different base speed stat, which is something that I also like to do in my drafts, which I think could help you in your own drafts as well. Not the most important thing to have everything as a deferring speed tier, but I think having as many different base speeds on a team is more of a helpful thing than a hindrance, of course. So we got Alolan Ninetales. It gives us a Fairy type. It doesn't give us a Bug type, which I kind of was hoping for, but it gives us an Ice type, and it does have Ice Shard. Coming off base 67 attack, not the greatest, but Ice Shard is one of the more valuable priorities in the game because it does help hinder things like Lando T, Salamence, Dragonite, things of that nature. When they're set up, you know, it just helps. So that's going to be Alolan Ninetales. We are going to go ahead and head back to that screen. Yes, thank you, Past Kyle. This is the screen that I wanted to go to. And as you can see, we are talking about Mega Tyranitar and whether or not it's a good idea to take it on the round coming back to us. I don't think it is, and here is why. So, right here in the yellow, highlighted yellow, are teams that already have a Mega, completely incapable of taking Mega Tyranitar. On the very right, you can see Jack Eastorm has Tyranitar, so he's incapable of taking Mega Tyranitar. So the possible teams that could take Mega Tyranitar are Colton, Trev, Jack, and Ellie. I'm not really afraid of Colton taking it. He could because it's one of the best checks to Blacephalon in the game. I just don't think it's very likely that he ends up taking it. Trev, I know for a fact, isn't going for it because I've talked to him at this point in the draft. Same with Jack. I know what Mega Jack wants, so I know for a fact that those people are not going to take Mega Tyranitar. The only person that I really have to worry about at this point is going to be Ellie. So if Ellie ends up taking her Mega on the way back after I make my next pick, then I can 100% wait until the last round to take Mega Tyranitar, which allows me to focus more on the next coming picks being more support roles for the team. Only having 34 points left on our budget, we really have to be conscious of how many points we're spending. So I'm looking for bottom of the barrel budget options that really, I feel, exceed what they do more than what their prices suggest they do. Things that will really help the team overall and things that synergize very well defensively overall. So these are things that I'm looking for in the next few coming picks. And having Mega Tyranitar cost 15 points, that leaves us 19 points to work with. And that means I can go 4 Mons over 19 points, which averages out to less than 5 points a pick. Or I can go 3 Mons for just over 6 points a pick. I have options. If I want to fill up my roster, it will be 4 Mons of 5 or less in value. So that's what I'm looking at. And we can go ahead and talk about potential things that I might want as we get back to the live draft right now. So let's go ahead and talk about a checklist that I have thrown together at this point for the next 4 picks that I want to make. Things that I want for 19 or less points. I want all of these things. I want a grounded poison type. I want something that gets spikes, T-spikes, just having extra hazards. I want specifically a water ground type. Now, I will go over why I want a water ground type when I end up picking the water ground type that I get more into detail, because I think it's a pretty important point in draft format in order to go over why I'm doubling up on my ground types, and specifically the exact types that they are. Other things that I want are a grass type, I want a normal type, I want a ghost type, and I want Wish for the team. I want a super bulky Wishmon that can switch into things. Something like Alomomola, but I'm not going to be able to afford it, nor do I really want it, having Gyarados and already looking at a water ground type. So things that have happened this round already. There's a water ground type that went in Seismitoad. Not the biggest of deals. It's not the one that I was really looking at. Another thing that's about to happen, as you're going to see, is Colton is going to end up taking a Mega. He is one of the people who could have taken Mega Tyranitar. He ends up getting Mega Venusaur. So that really helps ease my mind. So Mega Tyranitar I feel even more comfortable taking in the final round. Jack also took a water ground type in Gastrodon. Also not the one that I was thinking of getting. As we are going to see, I think the next thing that I really want to get back to us is the grounded poison type, and in getting this grounded poison type, I can have spikes and T-spikes, and on top of that, it's only 5 points. If you know what it is, go ahead and say it right now down below in the comment. I'm kidding. It's Garbodor. Also, getting back to the Mega thing, Jack ends up taking his Mega right now, which ends up being Mega Aerodactyl. So that's what he ended up wanting to get. So no Mega Tyranitar for him. And Garbodor. So for round 7, as I just said, we ended up getting Garbodor. Yes, it fills our grounded poison type, and it gives us both spikes and toxic spikes. I feel grounded poison is very important to have on a draft. Just because you can soak up T-spikes. If you are kind of weak to things like toxic spikes because you have a lot of grounded mons that are bulky, that are hard to take out, T-spikes is a nice way to help take those things out. So having a grounded poison type to come in and soak up toxic spikes instead of having to go into a steel type that has rapid spin, which there's only 2 of in the game, or going into a flying type that has defog, which could potentially take hazard damage from stealth rocks, therefore hindering it a little bit more than it normally would, aka Zapdos. It allows you to soak up those toxic spikes and not have to deal with it. Now, another way around this is having Heal Bell on the team, which could be very nice, which we could also get coming up in a bit. However, we end up getting Garbodor. It's a poison type. It has really nice stats, albeit, well, I shouldn't say really nice. They're usable. Their 80, 82, and 82 is decently bulky, and 95 attack is very decent at best. 75 speed, very decent at best, as I said, and 60 special attack, not the greatest, but it can be usable, especially with one of its usable sets being Acid Spray. So having 60 special attack at least helps a little bit with that. So Garbodor, I felt, was a very nice add to the team, giving us 2 things from our checklist, being a grounded poison and having spikes and T-spikes. So that's going to be what we roll with. We can go ahead and head back to what the next pick on our team is going to be. Or, well, we can go to the live draft and then get back to see what our next pick is going to be. There we go. That's the correct order of business. So here we are, back again to the live draft, and we are going to end up putting in Garbodor for our 7th round pick, and we are going to have 6 more picks happen before it gets back to us, and we can go ahead and talk about the checklist again. Things that I want: water ground type, a grass type, I want a ghost type, I want a normal type, and I want a wish passer. And as you can see right here, just a little tangent, Ellie ended up taking Mega Sceptile, which 100% cements that I'm going to get Mega Tyranitar in the final round. At least that's my plan, because the one person who could still potentially take it is Ruby, but I just don't see him ending up taking it because he doesn't have a Steel type yet. He could take a Mega Steel type or something along the lines of that. But anyway, let's go ahead and go over to what my reasoning was for the next pick. So as you can see, I have highlighted a bunch of things between picks 1 and pick 8 because 10, 11, and 12 are irrelevant to our next 2 picks that we make, or at least at the very least, it's irrelevant to the next pick that we end up making. So things that I have highlighted are, in yellow, lack of a normal type, and in green, lack of a wish passer. So Mono and Kelly both are missing a normal type wish passer that they could potentially get, and that is what I'm going to be aiming for with this next pick. Ruby does have P2 as a normal type, but he doesn't have a wish passer, and then Jack has 2 wish passers, but he doesn't have a normal type. So it's kind of up in the air whether or not he or Ruby would end up taking this mon with what they already have already, but it's very, very unlikely, at least what I think. Shoddy already has a normal type and a wish passer, having both Megalop and Aromatisse, and then Ethan has both in the same mon and having Mega King. So the mon that I wanted to end up getting, it was between this one and the water ground type, and as you can see, every team between picks 1 and pick 8 already have both a water type and a ground type. with Shoddy and Jack both having a water ground type on their team. So they are very unlikely to get what I am trying to get. So the very next mon that we end up grabbing is going to be a normal type Wish Passer, and that is Audino. Being 5 points, really nice. Having Regenerator and Wish Pass, being a normal type, so being basically a normal type a la Momola without the ridiculous defense stat, but also boasting a better SPDEF stat. Really nice. It having access to Encore as a normal type, as a bulky normal type that normally, as a generalization, likes to get set up on. Very nice. It having attack and special attack of 60, not so great, but it has things that it can take advantage of. It has insane coverage, of course, being a normal type. It has access to knockoff, which can be very nice utility. And the thing that it's mainly used for, and the reason I got it, is because Wish and Regen really help it continually come in, set up a Wish, pass into something offensive like Zygarde, like Gyarados. Zapdos can appreciate it, Infernape would appreciate sometimes. Just all these things getting a Wish pass into is fantastic. It's just being able to pass off wishes from base 103 HP, that's a lot of HP. That at max, at level 100, it's like 200 some HP. I don't know. But we're playing at level 50 anyway, so it's like 100 some. Does it really matter? No. So, Audino, being a normal type Wish Passer, is going to knock off a couple more things from the list that I wanted to get, which leaves the Water Ground type, and then we also have a Grass type and a Ghost type that we have to try and fit in here at some point. And luckily there is a mon that we can get for, we can fit 2 mons within 9 points that we will have left over, that I want to fill both of those roles, in having the Water Ground type and in getting the Grass Ghost type. So hopefully nobody takes the Grass Ghost type that I want to end up getting, but Audino having the ability to run Wish and also get its own health back from a Regenerator, very, very nice for a team overall. It only being 5 points on top of that, it's a great addition to the team, and that's why I ended up getting it. So we are going to head back to the live draft to see how rounds 8 and 9, how round 8 finished up and how round 9 went in getting back to us. So let's head right there. So here we are back again. It's going to be 16 picks until our very next pick, and things are looking to be shaping up to be finishing up around this part of the draft. Some teams will be finishing their draft on their way back to us. They're running out of points. It tends to happen quite a bit in the PPL, actually. People use up a lot of their points and usually have 9 to 10 mons. I'm personally like having a full roster of 11. I just think that overall it's the best way to go. In having a team of 11 mons, it's much harder to prep for, and it's much easier to prep with having more options, even if the options on the lower end aren't quite as viable. However, I feel like all the mons that we are going to end up getting with this team are going to be very viable. So, things that I'm still looking at are, as I have said, the Water Ground type and the Grass Ghost type. I kind of debated on the order of which I was going to take these. However, it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, which ones I take, because I don't see anybody taking a 4-point Grass Ghost type between Paul, Ellie, or Jack, especially because Jack already has a Grass Ghost type in Gourgeist. Ellie already has her Grass type in Mega Sceptile, and Paul, for a fact, I know is not going to take what I want. So basically, at this point, my draft is wrapped up, and I can take my last 3 remaining mons at whatever point I want. And on top of that, these are mons that I feel get overlooked. Same with Audino. Not so much Garbodor, because Garbodor tends to usually go in PPL drafts. However, things like Audino, things like what I'm going to end up taking in Quagsire and Trevenant, which I'm just going to go ahead and do back-to-back slides on them. We don't have to go... Actually, we can go back-to-back-to-back slides. on our final 3 picks, because at this point, draft is wrapped up, at least in my eyes. So let's go ahead and do that. And we ended up getting our water ground type in Quagsire. Now, before I talk about Quagsire, I wanted to talk more about that little tangent I was going on before we ended up getting here. Now, what I was going to say is that these lower tier mons that I end up getting, these lower priced ones, normally you would look at lower priced mons and be like, oh, they're not quite as viable, which I guess you can make an argument for that these mons aren't as viable as the mons on the top half of our roster. However, I feel they are just as important to the roster overall as the mons up top are. And that's what makes this team, I feel, one of the better ones I've ever drafted, is that every piece of this team was thought about going into each pick, and I feel like I meticulously ended up picking the best 4 mons out of Garbodor, Audino, Quagsire, and Trevenant that I could have. And basically what I was trying to say before getting to these back-to-back-to-back picks that I'm going to end up talking about is that all of them, at least in my eyes, are very viable, especially for the price that they were. So that's what I wanted to try to say, is that they're undervalued, overlooked, but definitely viable in draft format is what I'm trying to get at. So let's go ahead and talk about Quagsire now. It's a Quagsire. It has Unaware, which is very nice, especially considering one way to deal with setup is counter setup, or one way to deal with offense is counter setup, and it pairs really well with the team overall. Now, the one thing that I really wanted to touch on earlier that I alluded to is the fact that I'm doubling up on a ground type. Now, as you can see, Zygarde and Quagsire do not share any weakness besides Freeze Dry, which they are both 4 times weak to, but at least I have Infernape and Bronzong for Freeze Dry anyway. But these two do not share a single weakness, and I feel like it is very, very important in order to do something like this on a team. When you have a 4 times ice weakness on your team, like a Zygarde, like a Landorus, like even something like Salamence, like having a 4 times ice weakness, you want to pair it with something like Quagsire or Gastrodon or Seismitoad, water ground types, because they are only weak to grass, and that helps absorb at least part of the threat of having to run HP Ice, because then at least it gets your opponent thinking, oh, do I bring HP Ice to hit the Zygarde or HP Grass to hit the Quagsire? Now, of course, the main threat on the team is Zygarde. However, if you don't have Toxic or HP Grass, Quagsire can really be a bitch to take out. So, in its own right, it just being there, it gets into people's heads to think, oh, I should bring something like HP Grass for the Quagsire, or I should bring the Grass type that I wanted to check both Zygarde and Quagsire, which now I have things like Infernape, Zapdos, Gyarados, Alolan Ninetales, Garbodor. All these things can take advantage of Grass types. So I feel like just adding Quagsire to the team overall really helps mesh it all together. It kind of sucks that it doesn't get Stealth Rock, which would make it an even better pick at this point, I feel. However, I think just getting Quagsire right now, for 5 points even, great. Let's go ahead and move on to our next pick, which is going to end up being Trevenant. Now, another thing that gets kind of overlooked, or at least it gets a bad rep, and I can understand why it gets a bad rep, considering it's not the greatest of mons. However, it does fill both having the Grass type and the Ghost type on my team that I wanted, and it's only 4 points, but that's pretty undervalued, at least I would think, because Ghost coverage is really good. It having 56 speed, like, could come in handy for things like Trick Room, or even Anti-Trick Room that I could take advantage of. Stuff like that. So Trevenant, at least in my eyes, it has usefulness for the team. It might not come very often, but at least it's there, and it gives me the option to bring something like Spin Block, something to soak up Spore, or any of the powder moves. It's just, I think it's a very nice mon to have on the team. I thought it was very important to have a grass type and a ghost type on the team. Trevenant covers both of that, and it fit in to our budget perfectly. So why not get it? Why not try it out? It has 110 base attack with some very nice coverage with EQ, Drain Punch, and then of course its dual stab is pretty nice. So it has some usefulness. I'm not going to make an argument that it's the most useful mon, most viable mon. Of course, I did say all of these mons that I picked do have their own viability. I think Trevenant definitely is the least viable out of these, but at least it fits into the team very nicely, and I can use it if I want to. It's a Trevenant. Like, really, what else do I have to say about it? It's a Trevenant. And lastly, the main thing that I don't really have to talk about very much is Mega Tyranitar, of course. The team was kind of missing like that really premier, super hard-hitting attack stat, and having 164 base attack, that's pretty good. Because the next highest before that was Gyarados at 125. Having 164 is pretty nice. However, you can't throw a boosting item on it, but it can Dragon Dance. So I have a triple Dragon Dance core in Zygarde, Gyarados, and Mega T-Tar, all that have their own 4 times weaknesses that they don't share between each other. They don't share any weaknesses between each other. It's really, really hard to prep for all 3 of these mons. Also, with the fact that I can have Alolan Ninetales set up Aurora Veil in order to allow these mons to set up even easier. Like, Gyarados, Mega T-Tar, and Zygarde all under Aurora Veil, that just makes my brain hurt. Like, if I had to go up against my own team, like, Defog is a must, and that kind of helps my team overall. As you can see, I only have 1 Defogger in Zapdos, and that's my only hazard removal on the team. However, having something on my side like the Aurora Veil and all the hazards that I have on my team, I have 3 Rockers, and then I have Garbodor, which gives me spikes and T-Spikes. It really does end up helping out that my opponent is more likely to defog than I am, and I'm not really that weak to Stealth Rock overall, only having Zapdos and Alolan Ninetales and Gyarados, so that's 3 mons that are weak to rocks, albeit pretty important mons to wear down with rocks. However, it's not the biggest of deals, because I have enough bulk to where I can still take advantage of things like that. So, Mega Tyranitar giving me a Dark type, giving me a Pursuit Trapper, giving me another Flying Resist on the team, just everything about it, just, it's amazing. I cannot wait to use Mega Tyranitar. It's so good. It's so bulky. 100, 150, 120, with Sandstream basically making it, what, base 200 SPDF, comparatively. With the 1.5 boost, it wouldn't make it 180, I wouldn't think. I think it boosts it even higher than that. So, yeah, it's just a Mega Tyranitar, and that's going to be the team, and I am really excited to use this team. Like, I am itching right now to use this team. We drafted this team back in November, and it is already January, and I already have built my first 3 weeks. And I cannot wait to use these. I'm even getting ready to build for my week 4 matchup. Oh my gosh, I am so ready to use this team. I'm so excited. I hope you guys are as excited as I am to see this team in action. And if you are, go ahead and leave a like on this video. I know it ended up being a really, really long video. However, I really appreciate it if you guys stuck around. I want to know what you guys thought of adding in the live draft aspect to this video, giving you guys a little bit of extra, what's the word? A little bit extra perspective on why I took things when I did. If you guys like that, let me know. I would really encourage you guys to do it yourselves. It is a lot of work to put in. You can still give a little bit of snippet of like why you decided to pick something before another, like how I picked Bronzong before Gyarados, things of that nature. So just, I think it was a good idea, and I really hope you guys thought it was too. I thought it was really fun to do, at least on my own. I would like to thank whoever made these amazing graphics. I made them. Do you like them? I made everything you saw in this video, except for, like, obviously the anime art and that little box up there in the top right. I did all this. So, like, I'm really proud of this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like, comment below, do whatever you want to do with this video. Share it with others if you thought it was a good idea and you want to see more things like this in the community, because I feel like this draft strategy kind of outlook on the overall draft analysis is kind of overlooked. People just talk about what mons they picked and don't necessarily go into the context of which order they took them, which I felt this video offered. And yeah, I would like to see, personally, I would like to see more videos that go into the context in which they took the pick, like where they are in the draft order, all that stuff. So enough rambling. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, like I said, hit that like button, and we are ready to take on Division 1 this season.